Russia has captured the Zaporizhzhia plant, Europe's largest nuclear power plant. It comes after heavy fighting set an adjacent 5-story training facility on fire. The nuclear power plant is the largest in Europe. It is home to 6 reactors. It is the 10th largest nuclear plant in the world. It provides more than a fifth of the total electricity generated in Ukraine and has been on Russia's radar since the beginning of the invasion. This means that Russia now controls 2 nuclear power plants in Ukraine, Chernobyl and Zaporizhzhia. Russia's Asia has heightened fears about a lack of access to radiation data and the growing potential for a nuclear accident. However, the UN nuclear watchdog stressed that there are no immediate radiological risks. Currently, there are 6 reactors at the site. Only one is operating around 60% capacity.
It's important to say that all the safety systems of the 6 reactors at the plant were not affected at all, and that there has been no release of radioactive material. No release of radioactive material.
Ukraine has accused Russia of shelling the nuclear plant, calling it terror on an unprecedented level. Zelensky even drew parallels with the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, the world's worst nuclear accident. Russia instead has blamed the attack on Ukrainian saboteurs. Shelling nuclear power plants is against the Geneva Convention. This makes it a war crime. World leaders are accusing Russia of endangering the safety of an entire continent.
Russian troops attacked the biggest in Europe, Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. It alone could be as dangerous as 6 Chernobyls. The Russian tanks knew what they were shelling, directly pointing at the station. This is terror on an unprecedented level.
Currently, there are 4 nuclear power plants in Ukraine. Together, they operate 15 reactors. Almost 52% of Ukraine's electricity comes from these very plants. This means that these reactors are a crucial target. Capturing them means cutting Ukraine's main power source. The UN nuclear watchdog chief has now offered to travel to Chernobyl to negotiate on the safety and security of Ukraine's nuclear sites.
I have indicated to both the Russian Federation and the Ukraine my availability and disposition to travel to Chernobyl as soon as possible, so that these 7 crucial pillars are never again compromised.
One big concern right now is the cooling system of the nuclear reactors. If a plant's power supply is affected, it could essentially disable the reactor's cooling. In the worst-case scenario, this could lead to a Fukushima-like disaster. Joining us live now is William Courtney, a former US ambassador and an adjunct senior fellow at the RAND Corporation, which is a global think tank. He joins us on this broadcast from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, Ambassador Courtney. My first question to you, Russia has seized Europe's largest tank. By doing so, leaders say that Putin essentially has put the entire European continent at risk. What do you make of Putin's latest move?
The firing on the reactor site was irresponsible. There's no doubt that Russian forces were responsible for it. The Russian government has a lot of capability in the nuclear area. It could send nuclear experts to Zaporizhzhia to check the reactor to be sure everything is safe. It is a Russian-designed reactor, but there's no reason for people to be concerned at this point that a Chernobyl-like accident would occur.
Right. Talking about sanctions, nearly 11 Russian oligarchs have been sanctioned by the West, led by the United States, including those in Putin's inner circle, and yet attacks on Ukrainian cities continue under his command. Why is the threat of global isolation not working to deter Russia? What more can the U.S. specifically do?
Well, the U.S., together with its allies in Europe and Japan, elsewhere, all together, these countries have been taking strong actions through sanctions and through some other measures to raise the cost to Russia of its aggression in Ukraine. It may not be possible to impose sanctions that are strong enough to cause Russia to stop its aggression. We don't know what are the motivations of the Kremlin in carrying out this war. But the devastating effect on the economy will be felt, especially over the next couple of weeks, as all the sanctions kick in. Russia's economy is going to go into a tailspin of a kind it has not in 30 years of independence.
Right. Ambassador, at this point, I think everybody is trying to gauge Putin's real intentions at this point in the conflict. Vladimir Putin says that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is going according to plan, despite fierce resistance and deepening international isolation. So my question to you is, what is Putin's endgame in your mind?
It's hard to know. It looks like he wants to take over most or all of Ukraine. The fighting in the south, close to Mariupol in the east, that has been going more or less according to what is likely to be the military game plan for Russia. But of course, up around the capital city of Kiev, Russia's had a harder time bringing in forces, sustaining them, and encircling and seizing the city. So that part has not gone according to plan. One thing that is uncertain is whether Russia intends to take all of western Ukraine. The mountains there, the Carpathian Mountains, would be a particularly challenging target.
Just to follow up to that, so should other smaller European nations also worry, especially former Soviet nations?
Well, I think all the countries in Europe are worried, and especially those which are closer to Russia, which were under Moscow's control in the Cold War period, for example, the former Warsaw Pact states, the three Baltic countries, are especially concerned, because if Russia is trying to take a larger control of a larger area, if you will, to develop a coercive sphere of influence in the former communist lands, they all have reason to worry.
Right. Ambassador, thank you so much for all those insights, and thanks for joining us on WION World is One.
You're quite welcome.
WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.